everyone, welcome back to Penny Saves Paldea. I am so excited about this episode. It's our biggest one so far, and we not only have our new animation from Stick Studios, we've got our full voice cast of Troll, Mad Hat, and Stick Studios, voicing Clive, Ortega, and Juliana, respectively. Mad Hat also voices Giacomo, plus Raptor Rowan has been nice enough to jump in and voice Nemona. If you're just now joining, there's an FAQ in the description that includes a summary of the story so far. I've also got an important announcement at the end. We'll get started with Juliana versus Ortega at the Rukba Squad base, but in this story, Juliana will have a major advantage, thanks to a certain glitch becoming canon. To his credit, Ortega does try to sound cool and confident as the battle begins. It just doesn't come out that way.
Okay, so you're Juliana,
he says. Then he seems to collect himself a bit and leans forward.
I mean, talk about underwhelming. Took you, 19 minutes? You almost ran out of time.
Your last guy was really hard,
Juliana objects. Ortega shrugs.
Whatever, not like I'm gonna lose to you anyway.
He removes his muddy jacket and gives a theatrical twirl before sending Azumarill out to face Tinkaton.
Glad you have enough sense to know fairy types aren't all about cuteness, but you still made a big mistake challenging me with them. Azumarill, use charm!
Azumarill twirls the same way as Ortega, sending a flurry of pink hearts in Tinkaton's direction.
Tinkaton, Gigaton, Hammer,
Juliana calls out. Her Pokémon charges forward and hits Azumarill with a clang that echoes across the squad base. But loud and powerful as it sounds, Azumarill appears more or less unfazed. It throws out another charm attack to weaken Tinkaton's attack even more. Then, Ortega starts with the Aqua Tail attacks. Like Beartic with Blizzard and Superpower, Tinkaton is quickly depleted of its best move, leaving it with Skitter Smack, Play Rough, and Flash Cannon. Penny stands back, watching with pride at Ortega's success. This is what a team is supposed to feel like. Struggling with the effects of Tinkaton's devastated attack power, Juliana switches back to Beartic.
Sheer Cold,
she commands. Not that Penny or anyone else is worried. After all, what are the odds of... A blast of icy air bursts from Beartic's mouth and hits Azumarill smack in the center of its bright blue take-all-hits tummy. It swaggers off balance for a moment before it falls over, fainted. No way.
Lucky shot,
Ortega growls, pulling back Azumarill and sending out Wigglytuff.
Why don't you try that again? I dare you.
Juliana narrows her eyes, and she does try again. Penny's heart sinks as Sheer Cold hits its mark for the third time in a row. Hesitant to resort to Penny's Sylveon, Ortega sends out the Starmobile's Reveroom, only for it to meet the same fate. Penny shakes her head, trying to process what she's witnessed. Sheer Cold hitting 4 times in a row? The odds of that are less than 1%. Either Juliana is the luckiest trainer in the world, or something else is happening. Penny thinks of the strange photos Ortega received and swallows hard. Can the anomalies affect statistics too? How can she fight them if they can? She forces her eyes to stay on the match. But she barely registers as Ortega sends out her precious Sylveon. The last thing she wants is to see her own Pokémon taken out by a single, logic-defying hit. Only this time, when Beartic releases Sheer Cold, it doesn't work. Or rather, the attack itself works, but Sylveon seems to shrug it off. Penny's heart leaps from the pit of her stomach back into her chest. Sylveon's at too high a level to be affected. The pink and blue evolution lets out a moonblast at Ortega's command. Beartic's special defense isn't as shabby as its speed, but after 2 hits, it's on the ground. Giacomo cheers, but Ortega looks like he swallowed some extra bitter aguav berries. He wanted to win, but not this way. Tinkaton comes out next and lands a couple of super effective hits on Sylveon with Flash Cannon. But after all the battles she's had so far, Tinkaton's uses of Flash Cannon are soon gone too. Ortega raises his hand.
Let's finish this. Shadow Ball.
Sylveon glances back at Penny, who nods encouragingly. Her Pokémon gives a melodic cry, shoots out a cloudy ball of purple mist in Tinkaton's direction, and braces itself for the returning attack. Except it doesn't come. Tinkaton swings back and forth several times before it drops its hammer with a deep thunk and falls to the ground.
We won?
Asks an awestruck Giacomo. Juliana moans.
How could you win?
She shoves her 2 Pokeballs in her pocket and heads for the gates. Ortega grabs his jacket, clearly unhappy with his technically illegal win. If someone saw him take Penny's Pokeball in an official match, they'd declare Juliana the winner by default. He stomps his foot, but instead of landing with a clang, it phases in and out of the Starmobile's floor, causing him to lose his balance. Penny and Giacomo hurry to catch him.
I'm fine.
He says, pushing them off once his feet are on solid ground.
The base is safe, so let's just get back to work already.
Penny lets go and looks back, expecting to see Arven halfway to the gate alongside his friend. Instead, he walks up to Ortega, his eyebrows furrowed in what could be any number of intense emotions. Penny has never claimed to be good at reading people.
That Sylveon wasn't yours, was it?
Arven says quietly.
You don't keep your Pokémon in anything other than luxury balls.
If there's one thing Ortega detests more than winning by cheating, it's getting caught in the act. He holds Sylveon's Pokéball defensively to his chest.
I'll have you know, this one was a gift.
Arven crosses his arms.
A gift Pokémon.
Uh-huh.
To you.
Exactly.
In a standard, run-of-the-mill, cheap Pokéball.
Ortega looks down at the ground, flushing.
Yeah, thought so.
Arven scoffs with a shake of his head.
Listen, I don't know what crazy thing that was with Juliana before, but I don't think you caused it. So, I won't say anything about Sylveon if you answer a question for me.
Ortega swallows hard, which gives Penny a sinking feeling about what the question might be.
Sure. Ask away.
Did you ever get my texts?
No, not until today.
Even if it is the truth, the shakiness in his voice does Ortega no favors.
That's so,
Arven says, his own voice razor sharp. And why wouldn't it be? They are asking him to believe his former best friend missed all his cries for help months ago, but somehow found those messages again in Team Star's time of need. Quite a convenient coincidence.
I don't know why I try with you, Arven sighs. Good luck whenever Juliana comes back here, because she'll probably kick your butt.
He starts towards the gate. Penny's heart sinks. Yes, the squad is safe, but what can it actually do now? They're both going to leave. The only person who can control when the anomalies affect him, and the person who's experienced the most extreme anomaly Penny's witnessed so far. Even worse, they're going to drain Team Star's resources trying to attack the bases over and over. We can help your sick Pokémon, Penny blurts out. Arven freezes.
What?
If you're after this Herba Mystica, we can help you. We have dozens of members across Paldea, and our crew boss's skills are top-notch. She has no idea where this offer came from. She'd entertained it as a last-ditch plan, but it's not like her to propose things without thinking them through. For once, though, it feels like she can trust her gut. If any member of her team got hurt like Arven's Pokémon, she'd take any path available. She bet he would, too.
I have someone helping me already,
Arven says. But the doubt has crept into his voice. He isn't after loyalty, he's after results. Heck, even if he does think Team Star is plotting Paldea's destruction, he might still be in debate over this. But he won't admit it on the spot. They need to give him an out for now, and pull him in later. Thankfully, Ortega delivers.
Penny fixed my phone, so I can't miss messages anymore. Think about it at least, and call us when you decide.
Arven nods and starts walking away again, muttering a barely audible, "We'll see," under his breath. It isn't the well-calculated type of outcome Penny is used to, but for now, it will have to do. The gates close behind Arven with a demoralizing clang. He can't believe he listened to Ortega's Team Star buddies talking him up about the Herba Mystica, and he doubly can't believe he's thinking of taking them up on the offer. No, Juliana said she'll help, and he'll stick with that plan. Maybe Ortega is the type to stab people in the back, but his and Juliana's friendship is stronger than that. It has to be. Juliana walks up to him.
Sorry you had to see such an embarrassing battle, but I'm glad you still want to travel with me.
Of course, Arven says, trying his best to give her an optimistic smile. Who said I didn't? Juliana shuffles her feet.
You took a while to catch up. I thought maybe you were waiting for me to leave, so you could go off into another direction or something.
No, nothing like that, Arven says. I'm just slow sometimes is all. And anyway, we should get going before... Wait, what the heck is that?
He points towards the horizon where, far in the distance, the oasis of fresh grass meets the harsh, snowy ground. And traveling across the grass at full speed is someone on a cyclosaur. The girl is wearing a Naranja Academy uniform, and her dark brown ponytail whips back and forth in the wind behind her.
The student council president? What's she doing out?
Oh no! She's gonna crash!
Juliana isn't wrong. A large rock sits directly in the president's path, but her Pokemon makes no attempt to swerve around it. As she zooms closer, Arven also sees Nemona doesn't have her usual confident expression, but a wide-eyed face of fear. Cyclozar smacks the rock full force. The Pokemon itself appears fine. Rubbery padding on its wheel-like appendages absorb the impact with the same ease as an attack in battle. Nemona, however, is a different story. She continues to fly forward, still in riding position, her limbs frozen. Arven flies into a panic, first thinking he should try to catch her, then realizing that because he is panicked, she will fly right through him and crash headfirst into the fence at his back. Thankfully, Juliana has more wits about her and brings out her newly evolved Tinkaton. Tinkaton doesn't hesitate. She flips her hammer upside down and braces herself against it, 2 pairs of pink squishy arms ready for impact. The larger arms on her head nab Nemona out of the air and pull her down, while the smaller ones embrace her to absorb the full force of her sudden stop.
Thank you.
Nemona says, out of breath, as Tinkaton helps the girl to her feet.
Man, there's been some weird stuff going on lately. Maybe I'll just take a flying taxi next time I need to catch up to you.
She dusts herself off, smiles at Juliana, and extends her arms wide.
But hey, you're here! I'm so glad. I was waiting at the Montanavera gym forever.
She pulls Juliana into a fierce but quick hug.
I mean, I assumed you'd go there next after you beat Larry and everything. But then I waited, and then you didn't show, and then La Primera hadn't seen you around, and I got super worried. I don't know what I'd do without my best rival.
Yeah, glad you're all right and all, but Juliana's not headed for the next gym. We have other plans.
Huh?
Nemona recalls Cyclozar and cocks her head at Arven. Not like she's caught off guard by his presence, more like she's surprised he's there and speaking with her.
The treasure hunt isn't going to last forever. If Juliana wants to make champion rank before the semester's over, she has to keep moving forward.
Arven has so many snarky replies for that, he can't decide where to start. But before he can even narrow the list down, another figure appears on the horizon. Arven squints. It's that Clive guy, who seems to have the sense not to ride around on out-of-control Cyclozars, and he's sprinting up to them while holding his hand fiercely on top of his hair.
Does anyone require medical attention? I saw Miss Nemona rushing up at dangerous speeds. I attempted to intercept her, but...
He looks between everyone, clears his throat, and relaxes his stiff posture into a more casual stance.
That is, the Prez here went zooming past me faster than a quick attack.
He nods in approval at her intact, non-injured appearance.
Looks like she made it safe, though.
Clive addresses Juliana, admitting he gave out their location info when Nemona contacted him out of worry. He also demands to know what happened inside the base.
I saw you go higher than a fence. What was that? An illusion?
No, that was real.
Juliana says with a shudder.
Not to mention terrifying. And completely Team Star Boss's fault. Everything happened right as he grabbed me.
Well, Arven wrings his hands a bit. Technically, it happened when both of us grabbed you.
So you're saying it was both your faults?
Nemona asks. Juliana looks at her 2 friends like they've suggested a Hoppip use Splash against a Talonflame.
Don't be ridiculous. We've been traveling together this whole time, and Arven's had no effect on me at all. It was coincidence he grabbed me when the Team Star boss did.
She turns back to Clive.
Anyway, Team Star is gathering people who've been affected by weird events. Just like you said. They were really interested in this phasing thing Arven does. They said they wanted to experiment on him?
Study. Arven corrects. Study is the word they used.
Clive glances briefly at Arven, but motions for Juliana to continue.
So, even though I was completely freaked out by what happened to me, I knew I couldn't let them continue their experiments. I challenged the boss to a battle and demanded he disband his crew if I won.
Nemona looks absolutely starry-eyed at this development.
Oh, wow. And? What happened?
I, lost. Horribly.
Juliana hangs her head.
The worst of it was, the battle was really lucky for me. Sheer Cold hit 4 times in a row.
4 times?
Nemona's eyes widen.
That is impressive.
Indeed.
Clive says. Then, after a moment of debate, he shares a theory with Juliana. It's said if Pokemon have a super close bond with their trainer, it can have some noticeable effects in battle. They'll dodge attacks more easily, land hits more often, and sometimes even shrug off status effects. Juliana perks up at this insight.
So maybe Beartick hit so many times because of how close we were?
You said you only recently caught it in a raid and it just now started listening to you.
Arven reminds her.
Sounds closer to the same weird events you think Team Star is causing than a well-forged bond of affection.
Juliana shrugs.
I guess ice types bond to trainers more quickly?
You know who knows a lot about ice types?
Says Nemona in an almost sing-song voice. Clive smiles, seeming to catch her meaning. Grusha, the leader of the Glaciado Gym, an excellent suggestion.
Whoa, hold up!
Arven steps pointedly into the middle of their happy little gym-touring trio.
Aren't we forgetting something here? What about the Titans?
Juliana turns to face him, and to her credit, she does look like she feels a bit guilty, but apparently not guilty enough to change her stance.
I can't take the Titans if I'm so weak a Team Star bully can beat me up. Plus, if Grusha knows a way a Beartick can hit every time using sheer cold, we'll defeat the Titans much faster.
What's this about Titans?
Nemona asks, but Arven ignores her.
You're just like the perfect little school council president, aren't you? It's all about the champion title.
Juliana huffs.
I'd be glad to be more like Nemona. She plans her strategy ahead of time. She knows the results before she even makes a move.
Nemona blushes at the compliment. Arven feels alone and betrayed all over again. Juliana's expression softens and she pats his shoulder. Arven almost pulls away, but her words win him over.
I get you're scared from Abistiff, but I promised I'd help, and I will. Only let me handle my Pokemon my way, all right?
Arven kicks at the ground. Has he read her wrong? Maybe he's so used to people abandoning him, he doesn't know what a reliable friend acts like.
I guess the false dragon titan isn't too far from the Glaciado.
Before he can finish, there's a rustle as something approaches from around the side of the Rekpa squad's high, haphazard fence. Arven braces himself for some Team Star grunts to rush into view and make trouble. Nemona's hand flies to one of her Pokeballs. But instead of an ambush, the giant olive rolls forward. Nemona cocks her head.
Hello? Are you a student? If you're trying to do the Cortondo Gym Challenge, you know you don't have to roll the olive this far, right?
Her words dissolve as the olive rotates slightly. It looks much worse for the wearer, with large chunks of green foam ripped out of it. Team Star certainly did a number on the Cortondo Gym icon. But as the olive turns, it soon becomes clear that their handiwork has also freed the poor gym worker trapped inside.
I'm sorry, what am I looking at?
Nemona asks. Juliana explains that this too is Team Star's doing, then eyeballs the gym worker. He looks dazed and disoriented, his hair disheveled, and he still has chunks of foam encircling his limbs like some roughly hewn pool floaties. But he is walking on his own 2 feet, which is a considerable improvement from before. She asks the worker if he's okay, but he doesn't seem to hear her. Instead, he shakes his head and pulls a bit of foam out of his ear.
"It really is weird in there," he says. "Don't suppose you folks are headed back towards Cortondo Gym? I'm not sure I'm in the best shape for travel."
Juliana and Nemona shake their heads, but Clive raises his hand and volunteers to escort the worker back. He also asks to hear everything the man can remember about his harrowing experience inside the base. The gym worker nods and stumbles over to Clive, who lets him lean against his shoulder.
Well, that settles that, I suppose.
Nemona says.
Let's get hiking.
"Hiking?"
Arven whines. He knows the taxis won't take them. Not when he and Juliana haven't traveled very far from the school before. Something about proper clearance and whatnot, but still, he didn't think they'd have to walk.
I want to get Cyclizar to his center to make sure it's okay before riding it again. And I don't think Juliana's ride Pokemon can carry all 3 of us and our stuff.
"It could if it was at full strength," Arven thinks. "Bet it could carry 4 of us then."
Nemona puts on a bright, confident smile, which seems to lift Juliana's spirits, though not Arven's.
But no worries, I know the quickest path we can take.
With that, Nemona bolts off across the grass, motioning for the others to follow. Juliana does, full of energy in her step. Arven readjusts his pack and reluctantly takes up the rear. Carrying all this heavy stuff into the mountains isn't going to be easy. He hopes the center isn't too far. As they cross from the bare grass into the snow, Arven takes one last glance over his shoulder at the base behind him. The image of Juliana growing huge with those creepy stretched out eyes isn't leaving his brain anytime soon. She told him what happened to her in there couldn't possibly be his fault, but he also can't help wondering. Would it still have happened if Ortega was the only one to grab her? Nothing happened when the guy interacted with his fellow Team Star members in the base. If anything, they could have observed the same event and, using Juliana's logic, blamed the entire thing on Arven instead.
So, if it is caused by the two of us, what does that mean?
He thinks, gritting his teeth. If there is a connection, he doesn't get it, but he also has 3 more Herba Mystica to track. So, it seems this particular mystery will have to wait for another time. That'll wrap up this chapter, but I want to take a sec to break down the real one-hit KO glitch because this is one of those bugs that never, ever should have happened. Before a game can generate a random number, it needs a starting point called a seed. If you plug the exact same seed into the same random number generator twice, you will get an identical list of numbers both times. This is why it's important to base the seed off something that's always changing, like, say, the number of seconds in the current time, or the number of steps the character took. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet decided to not do that. When the game first released, the RNG seed was static, meaning that when you played online battles, a sheer cold that hit in one particular circumstance, specifically when you used it first in a doubles match, would hit in that same circumstance every single time. No, it did not make sheer cold hit over and over again, but having 4 Pokemon in the opening when your opponent only got 3 was an insane advantage. Though it was eventually patched, this glitch was less of an unforeseen error and more like a case of, come on guys, you really should have known better. This chapter also gave a nod to the super speed glitch in the form of Nemona's entrance. The idea was that if you took off from a high enough point with your Rhydon, turned sharply, and then came in and out of flying mode, your ride would get faster and faster each time until it was flying full speed across the map. I was never able to pull it off. Well, this is probably the closest I got. Usually I'd get dragged down by the Navi squad and yelled at for coming in the wrong way. Sorry, Atticus. Now, as you guys probably noticed if you've watched more than one of these, I've been tweaking the format for these videos here and there, but the next set of chapters is more focused on correcting the logic fails of Scarlet Violet than the glitches. So I'd like to try a different style of approach for them. Basically a what-if series on how it looks when the logic fails aren't there. I'll be putting these in a second playlist, but rest assured, the story will continue from where it left off here, just with some more lead-in so new viewers aren't wondering what the heck is going on. I'll also be starting a series of Hisui-based short fics in November, so the channel will soon get updates weekly instead of every 2 weeks. Thanks so much for following, and see you next time. Until then, happy reading and happy training.